Tingana and worried about his paw injury. The fact that he found himself a kill, whether or not he found it or killed it, either way, he's managed to get a bit of food, which is great news. It means that our male is doing just fine and should be okay. So hopefully he will be meandering around this area and will be making some sort of noise once again that I'll be able to hear him. While we do that, let's go back across to Scott Dyson and see, well, if he's had any more luck on his leopard search than what we've had.
Well, we haven't had any luck with our leopard search. We're trying to show you a crested francolin that is lying on its nest somewhere in this thicket of grass. And we slowly approached on foot. I nearly stepped on it this morning. I literally put my right foot about 10 centimeters away from the nest and took up, and I looked down and there was a clutch of about 6 eggs. So we slowly walked in, and we were probably only about 1.5 meters away peering in, and we could just make out her feathers, but she's so camouflaged that she's blending into this thicket incredibly well. Let me try and use my finger to show you where she was. You can see a little bit of a hole over there. She's somewhere in that little bit of a cavity within this thicket of grass. And oh, I can see her head. Well done. There you can see her feathers. I don't know if it's her head. Go down a bit, Davy. Keep zooming in. Okay, you're on her. Oh no. I'm wrong. That is grass. But apparently you did see her up a little bit. Well done, Lou. Apparently you guys and some of you can see her. Oh, well done. Is it down to the right a tiny bit? Or am I imagining things again? No, those are feathers. So you can see some feathers there, but that's as good as it's going to get, I think. We obviously don't want to harass her as she's busy incubating. Down a tiny bit into the right, Dave. What's that there? I thought those were her feathers, but they don't appear to be now. Dave's doing an incredibly good job trying to work out where this little creature is, but I'm told some of you guys did get some views. Let me see if I stand up, if it's a bit easier for me to see her. Ooh, yeah. I can see her from up here, but she's even from up here, she's just so incredibly well camouflaged. So I think we'll leave it for now. But when we come on our next bushwalks, which sadly we won't be doing for about a week, the trackers are going on a much needed break after spending many hours not only on foot but also searching on the road, sitting with animals during the day over the last 2 weeks. So they're on a break, so we're not going to be doing any bushwalks for I think 5 or 6 days. But we can keep checking in on her. If she's not actually incubating, or he, because I'm guessing they'll take turns incubating, the males and the females, we'll definitely be able to see the eggs if she's not sitting on them. Well, I'm glad we found exactly where it is and got to show you a kind of glimpse of her. And now we are sending you off for a glimpse of another wonderful creature.
Well, there we go. There is the spots that we were looking for. So Tingana has kindly obliged and is now lying out in the open at Buffelshoek Dam. So he's popped out and you can see he's fallen back asleep. Oh, there's a bit of eye action that's just opened, which is great news. So I'm super glad that we managed to kind of catch up with him. He's having a nice rest. You can see his belly is not full, but it's definitely a little bit in there. And so he must have enjoyed his dike and then came for a drink. And I was hoping that was going to be the case, is that he would come up here. And so that's why we were spending time in this area. So luckily for us, he made a bit of noise and called, because otherwise I don't think any of us would have found him. He's lying, even though it's quite open where he is lying quite flat, and it's very difficult actually to see him from any of the roads. It's only because he made noise that we kind of investigated these areas and were able to find him. But how cool is that? He looks as though he's fairly sleepy and fairly relaxed about things. He's been great to have him around as much as we have over the last few days. And like I was saying earlier, even though he's got this limp at the moment and he's struggling a little bit, it seems as though he must have managed just fine last night if he found himself a duiker. Whether or not he killed it, I don't know, but I would imagine so, because we haven't found any tracks for other leopards up in this general vicinity over the last week, and we have scoured Djuma from top to bottom for leopards for the TV show this morning. So I would imagine that he managed to bring that down on his own, which is then means that paw, even though it might be a bit sore, it still means that he's able to at least find some sort of food, and as long as he's finding food, he'll be absolutely fine. But that is one tired, happy, content cat. I think he's probably thoroughly enjoying the fact that there's also no sun this afternoon as well. So, Francis from Israel, you say that Leopard Whisperer strikes again. Well, I'm not so sure about that. After this morning, I'm doubting just how much that capability is around. This morning, we checked absolutely everywhere to try and find leopard, and we sort of failed in our mission, unfortunately. But that's the way it goes. There are cats that, if they don't want to be found, they won't be. And then at the end of the day, we still have had so much luck with leopards this week. I've seen plenty leopards and spent so much time with them this week. It's been actually quite fun. I've had a really good time. Wiem and I have spent, I think, probably in total, we've maybe spent close to 10 hours with Tingana this week, which is a long time. It's probably the most I've ever spent with him in such a short space of time ever. So I really thoroughly enjoyed it. Most of it has been watching him do exactly what he's doing now, which is sleep. And other times we've watched him hobble along and kind of look at things, and he's had a few little run-ins with Ellies, but otherwise he's been such a star to have around. It's been really quite cool, and to be able to get these sort of close visuals of him has been absolutely phenomenal. So you can see he is breathing quite heavily, and that's just because he'll probably be digesting a bit. Let's see now when he rolls over. Oh, there we go. It is beautiful. That's better. Nice. There we go. Now he's up. Look how beautiful that is. That's one thing about summer, and it's why I absolutely love the summertime, is look at that green grass in contrast to that golden spotted coat. Is there not... There's very few things in life that is that pretty. I always think that they just contrast so nicely against green grass at this time of the year. Right, now from something absolutely exquisite and beautiful that is going to take a nap, I believe we're going across all the way to James with something that's quite ugly, and no, I don't mean him himself.
Well, thankfully the ugly thing to which Tristan is referring has disappeared. It was a large Warthog Boar, and actually was sitting in this pan here. Andre, you'll move the car if any traffic comes this way, won't you? Thank you so much. And it was eating soil. I think Tristan's being very nasty calling it ugly. I don't think it was ugly at all. And I just wanted to see if it was actually eating mud, or if there was perhaps something else here. There are a few little green pieces of, looks like clover, but they aren't clover, I'm pretty sure. And that's where his mouth marks are, around here. So maybe he was just eating these green bits. No, in fact, he was over here. Here's where he was. He was eating soil. He was definitely eating this clay. Very interesting. I shan't be digging the clay out to make a warthog, of course, because I'm not very good at that, as some of you have seen. Okay, we're now back at Twin Dams, hoping to find something there. We're not going to stay at Twin Dams, we're going to head towards Tree House Dam now and see what pops up there. I didn't find a great deal in the way of large predatory animals on Chitwa. Now I'm very pleased to say that Ralph is in the Mara, as all of you know, and that he is still with his male.
Yes, folks, and we're still sitting here with these lions that we found relaxing in the grass, and look at that lovely yawn. Now, for those of you that might be wondering if this is Scar, I had a little bit of an inkling myself. Having seen pictures of Scar, however, I think he's quite a older individual, and if I'm not mistaken, Scar's right eye, his right eye, is the one that is gone or has been impaled. And as you can see from this angle now, there's nothing wrong with that right eye. And I did chat with Archie, and he says that it's not the right area for Scar, but it's obviously not impossible for him to have moved here, so that wouldn't have been a total elimination. But there you can see a very clear eye. So I have my doubts, but like I've said, it's not something that I'm very accustomed to. I'm still learning these guys, so I need to work out the individuals. And the 3 males that we have here are all of a similar, if not the exact same age. We can't see the other 2. They have disappeared in the grass. They're a little bit, and there's a lovely sneeze. They're a little bit off to the right of the screen there. Not far off at all. They must only be about 30 meters away, but totally disappeared in the grass as they laid down. So we've got flat cats in South Africa and flat cats here in the Mara. This one not totally flat, but after all the action that we had, I think it's quite fitting that we do get to appreciate a little bit of non-activity with the cats. It's not always action and chaos. A little story that I've got for you with flat cats is that I knew a ranger that was a section ranger in the Kruger National Park, and he, you know, in the old days there was absolutely no movement around the park after dark, and even with the section rangers. So he was pretty late to get back to one of the camps, and it was heading towards sunset, so he had to speed up a little bit, and he came across a pride of lions on the road, and he had to obviously stop and wait for these lions to potentially get out of the way, because in those days there also wasn't any off-road driving. So he sat there for quite a while, and the sun was dipping, and he was going to be in big trouble by his boss if he got back after dark. So he took a chance, and he drove right up close next to the lions and just tried to go off the road around them and then get back on the tar. And as he drove around them, one of the female's tails flicked out, and he drove over her tail with one of her paws. It was obviously sore that he drove over her tail. She smacked his tire off the rim in one hit. It literally, he drove back into camp with his wheel doing this, and obviously he had to just keep going, because once again he had to get back into camp, otherwise he'd probably get a warning, if not a final written warning from his boss for being late. But I think he got into trouble anyway before coming back in with a totally destroyed tire. But nonetheless, it just shows the power in that paw that these lions do have, and that's a female. I wouldn't like to get a smack from a male. I think it hit your head off your shoulders, quite literally. So we're going to keep sitting here. I love sitting with cats and waiting to see what they're going to get up to. But in the meantime, let's cross over to Tristan, who I think is with Tingana.
I am indeed, and Tingana is now up and moving. You can see he's still limping around a little bit. Whether he's going to move far, I'm not. But I think he's going to go and just sit down right over there, where it's going to be difficult to see him. Of course you are, Tingy. That's exactly where you like to be. So he seems to be as though he's going to sit. Let's try and see if we can just get a better view. Well, yeah, I'm going to go forward for you. So it's going to be the back of his head for now, because at the end of the day we don't really have a better angle. You can see on his left side there's a lot of vegetation. On the right side will be a very steep bank that will look at the back of his head anyway, so we might as well just sit. He's been up and down quite a bit since you were last with us. He's kind of stood up and he's walked, and he's become a bit of a lawnmower. He ate a whole bunch of grass, including a stick that got stuck in his throat at one point, which he had to cough out very unceremoniously, and then he's now moved up on top of there. Interesting though that he is scent marking walking heavily, so he's been scraping his feet already. And if he's calling, I think he's just trying to tell everybody that I am still around, even though he's not been able to patrol as much as he normally does, that he's still around and that he is still the dominant male in this area, which is fantastic because he's going to have to do that with all these younger males around, and with Tandi's den and her cub. And if he's not the one that is kind of dominating and looking after it, then that cub is in some serious danger. So it's good that he's marking and calling and trying to make himself as known as possible. Interestingly enough, though, it was a kind of interesting sort of look. With checking the footage of Tandi that we've accumulated over this week, and she's also been in a little bit of a scrap. She's got a number of cuts on her as well. It's interesting to know what's gone on. I wonder if maybe she didn't have a little fight with Tingana. Difficult to say. I mean, it's all, a sort of theoretical thing because we don't know what happens in the middle of the night and what's actually happened to Tingana, but it could be a situation where that might have been the case. It's just interesting that both of them have got little cuts and scrapes all over their kind of faces and front end of their bodies. Both of them Tandi is actually perfectly fine. We know she killed a massive male impala, and so there's nothing wrong with her at all. She's doing just fine at the moment. So I wonder if maybe she was just trying to kind of enforce that the cub is a no-go area for even Tingana. It'll be interesting to know. You can see he's just watching one of the other vehicles on top there, still kind of working out what he wants to do. I think at this stage he's not going to be moving too far. He's at least got a fullish belly, and at the end of the day, with that limp, I don't think he wants to put too much pressure, although he walked far last night, so it's possible. Brandon, you were wondering how do we tell the difference between the individual leopards and know the names of them? Well, Brandon, it depends on how you do it. Everyone has different ways of doing things. For me, there's just a general appearance of this animal, so it just looks a certain way, and that kind of straight away, as soon as I see it, after seeing it so many times, generally kind of I can roughly estimate who it is. In fact, even Tingana, from quite far away, he looks different to all of our other males, and so you can ID him quite far. He's got a big dewlap, quite wide shoulders, and so none of the other males in this area have even remotely as big a dewlap as what he's got. So let's see, looks like he's going to come down for us, which is actually quite good news. He's going to come into a better area where we can see him. But other way that people will use is spot pattern. So spot patterns refer to either around the eyes, particularly over the whiskers there, so there's a few spots on top of the whiskers, and then any other kind of spot that stands out on the body. So Tingana's got the smiley face that he's got on his, I think it's his left shoulder, if I remember. Yes, the left shoulder is where the smiley face is. There it is. It's in there somewhere. So he's got that, and that kind of IDs his shoulder. And then the rest of the spots will also all be different to other leopards. So when you side by side compare them, you can often get a good comparison. But that's the kind of scientific way is to use spot patterns. But when you see them a lot and you see leopards regularly, it can get a lot easier just to kind of overall appearance of them. Two leopards that are quite difficult is Shadow and Tandi. You've got to be a bit careful when you kind of first see them from a distance because they do look quite similar. The thing is that once you kind of get a little closer, then it's not difficult, although I have confused them a few times as well. So, but I've made a few notes recently of little distinguishing features between the two and seem to have a good system now. Alright, boy, have you found yourself a better place? You can see he's still eating grass, and I wonder why this is, because if he ate a duiker this morning, eating grass generally triggers regurgitation, and I would be surprised if he's trying to eat grass to regurgitate out what he ate today. I would have thought he would have been trying to digest and trying to get rid of, or trying to consume as much of that nutrition as possible, but maybe there's some hooves and hair and things in his stomach that is just making him feel a little bit uncomfortable, and so that's why he's eating, to try and get rid of it. But you can see he's really tucking into grass. The other day I also watched him. I thought he was eating grass, but he was actually licking all the water off it in the early morning. So sort of instead of actually eating the grass, he was just kind of taking water off. Now, I'm not sure if I heard that right, but either way, we're going to go back across to where Tandi's kill is, and I believe it's also being tucked into.
Well done, Tristan and Tingana. I'm so happy that you guys have not only seen lion this afternoon, but also a wonderful leopard. Now, we were hoping that we'd hopefully be able to give you a second leopard, a female leopard, who we were hoping was going to return to the site of this impala kill that you can see draped over the branches of a small bush willow tree. but no joy. And it's really, really fascinating. I'm astounded by the fact that she's not here. Now, for those of you who are not too filled in on the situation here, the female leopard that killed this impala has got a tiny little 6-week-old cub at the moment. Well, at least one, possibly more. We've only had one brief sighting of her at the old den site. We think she's moved den sites. There's no sign of her at the old one, and there's also no sign of her here, which means, who knows, maybe she's run into trouble. I mean, that is a reality. She could have been injured or caught up in a fight trying to defend her young cub. Or, what I'm hoping, is that she's made another kill closer to the den site, and she's just making the most of that. So there's a strong likelihood that is the case. Leopards, like most predators, are highly opportunistic, and on her way from here back to the den site, maybe she was presented with an opportunity that she made the most of, and maybe she's got another kill up in a tree somewhere. Anyway, we're probably going to spend the rest of the afternoon here hoping that she comes back. We need to rush you back up to the Masai Mara, because it's not only Tingana who's up and moving about, there's also a big male lion who's on the move. So enjoy. I wish I was coming along.
Yes, folks, so this male that we've been watching has just gotten up, and now we've got a fantastic identifying feature. If Archie can just go in there on the tail, he's lost the end of his tail. So this would be now, I'm sure there's going to be all sorts of light bulbs going off in people's heads here, and if anybody can tell us which lion or which coalition this male is part of, because that would be an absolute giveaway. If you guys can't tell me, I'm sure once I get up to camp and I have a chat with Taylor and Jamie and Brent, I'm sure they'll be able to tell me very quickly which coalition this is part of. Now, this male, he looks like he's been in the wars, and he's doing a little bit of grazing at the moment, and you do know that with a lot of the cats, they will do that when they do try and sort of clean their gut out a little bit. Sometimes it can make them regurgitate. It can also pass right through and just help to get any stuck little tidbits that are left in the gut. So it does help for a little bit of a cleaning mechanism. It's not that they're becoming omnivorous in any way whatsoever, if anyone was thinking that. It's just merely cleaning the gut, and it very often results in them regurgitating. Maybe he's got a bit of a fur ball from the prey that he's been feeding on, and sometimes they also get it from the fur that they're cleaning off from themselves as well. But I'm very happy to have seen a very characteristic individual here, and I'd love to know this coalition. So, we've literally driven for an hour and come down the hill. So I've just heard that Miss Parker saying that it's the Chitwa boys. Miss Parker, I'm going to go with you because that's a definite characteristic on the tail there. So Miss Parker, thanks for that. I'm going to go that it's the Chitwa boys, and he's still grazing nicely around that tree. Excuse me, not the Chitwa. I'm thinking too much of Djuma now. The Kichwa boys. Sorry, I was dreaming of the Sabi sands, I suppose. But nonetheless, I'm loving it where I am at the moment, not wanting to be anywhere else. My mind was just maybe traveling a little bit further south. But he also seems like he's got a little bit of a limp. So he might have been in the wars recently. As I say, it almost looks like he's got a little bit of a hernia on his belly, or at least a bit of a wound. He's lost the end of his tail, and he's got a limp. So now I wonder if that's fighting with the other two. And he does seem to have a few gashes around, but it's all healed up. So he has been in the wars. But that can also be fighting with other males, defending a territory. Sinak, that's a very good question, asking what I think could have happened to his tail. Well, Generally, when you're looking at injuries to lions, it's mostly other lions that have caused that injury. It's very similar with zebra. When you see zebra, they've got half the tails, which you see regularly. It's normally other zebra that have bitten it off as well. Now, I would say that with this male, it's quite possibly that he's been in a few tussles, whether it be just the dominance dynamics within this coalition, which can quite possibly be, or whether it was when he was a youngster in this coalition and they were trying to take over a new territory of their own. It's all down to guesswork at the moment. I'd love to find out and speak around camp and find out from anybody else. Maybe we're going to pick up on some answers here. But lovely to see when you can have such a easy identifying feature. It's not very nice for him because he's lost that lovely fly swat on the end of his tail, plus a little bit of counterbalance, but he hasn't got this old if he's at a major disadvantage. And he's obviously in a very good coalition with these other two boys, so I wouldn't worry too much about him. I think he'll be fine. And just he's got a little bit of a limp, but it's so amazing how, you know, the cats, even the buffalo, the prey species, I'm sure you would have seen lots of buffalo getting injured by lions. You see zebra getting injured by crocodiles, and they come back after, you know, a few obviously a bit of time, maybe about a month or so, and those wounds heal, and they make do, they survive, and they carry on. You know, it's like if some people, you might lose a finger, you learn how to operate without that finger, and sometimes you can actually almost overcompensate, and you can be better than you were before. For instance, losing an eye, like Scar has done, seems like he's continued on nonetheless, and almost none the worse off as well. But obviously it would be better for him to have both his eyes, but now he's overcompensating with one eye, and he would maybe protect that side a bit more. But you know, sometimes it brings out the best in animals and people when you have adverse conditions and injuries. And there he's I don't know, for me I'd call this guy Stumpy. It looks quite a shame. He looked very regal, but then lacking the end of his tail. Shame. Probably feels quite embarrassed with the other two boys. Maybe that's why he's been in so many fights. I've been teasing him. But looks like he's got quite an upset stomach. Whatever it might be, is maybe a bit of indigestion. He needs to try and clear that through. He's been doing quite a bit of feeding on the grass, but nice to see a lion up and standing. The other two are still flat in this long grass. It's a lovely color, this red grass, or red oat grass that they call it here in Kenya. Back in South Africa we just call it red grass. It's Temida triandra, nonetheless, the Latin name. Courtney, you're wondering if a crocodile might have got his tail. Well, that's also a fantastic comment to make, because it could quite possibly be exactly that. Maybe he was crossing the river and a crocodile had a go at him. That's absolutely feasible, and good comment there, Courtney. But as I say, it's all down to guesswork. We don't know what it might have been, but very interesting to see that. And I'm sure you would have seen quite a lot of zebra as well without their tails. It's quite interesting. I've actually watched them biting each other's tails off, and they almost don't even flinch. But this is quite a wound. That, I mean, you must imagine it's almost thicker than your thumb on the point there. So that very stumpy now. Shame. Right, so as I say, I love watching the cats. We're going to carry on watching this guy, see what he gets up to with the graze work. But in the meantime, let's cross over to another cat, and Tristan, back in South Africa.
Well, it seems that it's a grazing type of day for our cats. Maybe there's something in the air moment after a TV show, they're all going on diet and going on to a vegetarian lifestyle. Who knows? Either way, it's interesting behavior to watch, and it's amazing how that much grass they sometimes eat when they want it. You can see Tingana's gone fast asleep on the bank. Is not the best place. Now come down into this little drainage line and is past him once again. Talking about it at the end.
So, apologies for the bad signal with Tristan and Tingana. It sounds like you guys are having a wonderful afternoon, seeing not only Tingana eat grass, but also that big male lion up in the Mara. What next? We were hoping Tundi would have returned by now, but no luck. We are still sitting and waiting patiently at the site of her impala kill. That is the direction she would be coming from if she was to come back, and let's hope she's okay. There is always a chance that she was, like I said a bit earlier, trying to defend her young cub against possibly male leopard that didn't father it, or hyena, and she may have been injured. But I'm confident that she's made another kill that's more conveniently situated, closer to her den, and she's busy snacking on that now, possibly, or at her new den where we don't know the whereabouts of. So we've got an exciting treasure hunt to look forward to, the treasure being at least one young 6-week-old little leopard cub, and it's been many a year since I've been lucky enough to spend time with young leopards. My entire time with Safari Live here at Djuma, we didn't have any young cubs. It was as I left for a short break up in Kenya, when Kruger had given birth to Hosanna and Shongile, who provided you guys and the Safari Live crew with countless hours of incredible sightings, along with their mother Kruger. Sadly, 2 of them we presume to be no longer with us, both Kruger and her young daughter Shongile. But Hosanna is still about, the young boy. Hi, Lily. Just 6 years old. Great to have you on safari with us. You would like to know, how big of a kill could a leopard hoist up into a tree? Well, like humans, some of us are bigger or stronger or shorter or taller than others, and it all depends on the individual leopard. The females are quite a lot smaller than the males, so this is just about as big a kind of a kill that a female would be able to hoist up into a tree. Now, it's important to remember, Lily, that once they've fed on the kill for a little bit, their food is in their stomach, and that makes it a little bit easier for them to carry the rest of the kill up into the tree. So that's exactly what happened here. She fed on the kill first and then took it up into the tree later on in the evening. And big male leopards will be able to take kills as big as a baby giraffe up a tree. So definitely the strongest of the big cats. The lion and cheetah would never be able to do that. Their tree climbing skills are not nearly as good as the leopards. And leopards are also very, very powerful for their size. So they can take kills sometimes bigger than themselves up trees. Absolutely incredible strength. And imagine having to hold onto something in your mouth, very heavy, the same weight as yourself, Lily, and then climb up a tree with it dangling out of your teeth. It shows you how strong they are. Very good. We need to race you off to James, who's got a bird. Let's hope it hasn't flown away.
No, it hasn't flown away. It is a little peaceful dove. Ringnecked dove. And it's going to fly, and I'm going to take an illegal photograph of it, what with this being my last drive before the Christmas vacation. Fly now, bird. Come now. I want to get you in flight. To-it-to-woo! I'm pretending to be an owl. I got him. Don't tell Mr. Wallington, please. We've come to Impala Plains, and found nothing. We did the whole of Mendoza Road and found nothing. We did find a very small warthog. Unfortunately, it gave us about 3 seconds of its time, so there was no chance for you to come and see it. It was this big. And so now we are just... what is that on the ground there, Jondry? Do you see that bird over there, sitting on the log? Let me observe it with my powerful Gestapo issue binoculars. It is a pipit. Pipit, 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 pipit. You must say pipit, everybody. It's a wonderful word to say, pipit. Now, which pipit is it? Is it the grass-felt pipit? Or is it the African pipit? Or are those, in fact, synonyms for the same bird? Let's have a look on the bird app. Pipit. We have many pipits. The African rock pipit, that one wasn't on a rock, so I'm not going to go with that one. Where's the one that I think it is? Kimberley pipit, unlikely. Unlikely to be a Kimberley pipit, given that we're not in Kimberley. Long billed, that looked like it had a fairly normal bushveld pipit. No, I don't think it's that one either. No, that one is too spotty. Let's have one last look at the plain-backed pipit, maybe? No, I don't think it was a plain-backed pipit either, everybody. I'm afraid that I'm not doing very well with my pipits. Wait, let me get my book out. My book will be better. It has more simple illustrations in it. Straight to the pipits and the larks. Long-tailed pipit, short-tailed pipit. No, I think it was the grass-felt or African pipit, in fact. That's the one I think it was over there. Maybe slightly less streaked than that one. There's the plain-backed. He's the one next door, number 5, but I don't think it was him. I'm going to go with grass-felt or African pipit there. Marvelous. Yeah, let's go with that. Good. Happy? You think it looks like number 4, do you, Louise? Good. Well, that was the African or grass-felt pipit. Fantastic. Let's move along. Not many minutes left to find Shadow and her cub, whose name is not Barbara. We're right on the western boundary now of Djuma. Over a bump. Now Ralphie is on his way back up the mountain, up the escarpment, and well, I think you should ask him to say escarpment and see if he's very good at that.
Just hasn't me back by now.
Yes, everybody, and the escarpment is quite a mouthful. We are coming up the escarpment, and I'm sure that Archie can show you up front. It's really ominous weather, so we're going to be battening down the hatches shortly through here, because we were on our way down for the hot air balloons. This area was full of hyena, and there we go, right in front. Bob's your uncle. There's a hyena coming out. Obviously just left the den. It's a little bit dark for us to be able to see now, but that was a bit of luck, and I thought that it might happen again. There must be a den around this area, because there were literally about 25 of them or so that we spotted this morning. And that's maybe one of the first ones now coming out and making its way to see what it can find on this nice blustery rainy evening. I haven't seen any more come out, but there was a whole load of them this morning, so I'm sure that there will be more coming out. Maybe he's the early riser and he's the scout going out to see what he can find before the rest all start coming out. And through the evenings into the morning, every evening we do hear them very close to camp as well, and he is making his way towards the zebra, which are moving off. Phil, fantastic comment there, saying that the Olololo escarpment, Olololo, where you can type it with one finger and it's all next to each other. That's an interesting comment there, Phil. Yeah, I'm still getting my tongue around the word Olololo. So it's that double O, the Olololo. But lovely escarpment that we do live up on in the camp, and I'm sure Archie can just have a nice little pan there up in front. That escarpment, obviously, we drop down that every morning and every evening on our way down onto the plains, and then heading down towards the Mara River. So it's a very big landmark for us. And yes, so we're going to batten down the hatches. I'm going to head up the escarpment, but thanks for joining us for this afternoon, and in the meantime we're going to head over to Scott.
So we've decided to leave the kill. It's literally 100 meters behind us, and we are hoping that in the last few minutes of this safari we are going to intercept Thandi on her way back to the kill. Now, there's no guarantees, of course, but that is what we are hoping for. I think that was Rolf. Was that Rolf's first drive in the Mara? It could have been. I hope you all enjoyed being with him up there. I'm sure you did. He must be very, very excited to be exploring up there. And he's done 2 balloon trips so far. What a treat. Straight up to the Mara, into a balloon, and he got into, I think, a balloon before he got behind the wheel to take you guys on safari. So he got a very awesome intro into the Mara, and I'm sure he's going to have a great time up there. I was just chatting with Dave, who was also up in the Mara with me, how well the two properties complement one another. They really are 2 incredible wildernesses, but so different, as I'm sure you guys have gathered. So we're very, very fortunate to be taking you along on some epic safaris through these 2 places. I'm so excited for the next few months that I'm going to be spending here, a lot of time of which will be on foot, which I absolutely love. Well, a big thanks to all of you guys for joining in on the safari, and we are going to say goodbye until tomorrow afternoon. Tomorrow after the morning we're going to have a much needed morning off. Massive thanks to Lou and the FC, as well as all the tech guys for making this broadcast possible. Well done, Darby, on camera. We'll see you next time.